Feel the burn. Arak, StarrEagle, modern-day minstrel and the poetic peacemaker, endorses Mr. Bernie Sanders, the Honorable Bernie Sanders, my Raptors. And that's not peace out, it's peace in. It's my old alma mater here. This is Douglas College in wild and woolly New Westminster. Used to go to school here, loved the school a lot. Miss it. Well, greetings my Raptors, haha, yes. I am the modern-day minstrel and I am the poetic peacemaker, Arak, StarrEagle, a hip-hop and glam rap artist, MC and a chairman for the Halcyon Imagineers, humanitarian group in the artistic studios. This particular video, folks, will be an endorsement of one of my favorite people, in politics ever, and that would be the Honorable Mr. Bernie Sanders. He's a very good-hearted man, with very intelligent and keen mind, and a lot of integrity of character. And I'm endorsing him for the next president of the United States of America. Well, first of all, I should say a few things about myself and also where I'm coming from with my standpoint. I'm not speaking today, folks, on behalf of myself, not at all on behalf of the Halcyon Imagineers, artistic nonprofit group. We're comprised of individuals with a lot of different political leanings, ranging from the center-left Green Party, the fiscal conservatives as well, to, I guess I would be included in this, the far-left liberal socialist and democratic socialist and progressive branch, if you will, of politics. A little bit about myself. I want to give you a background about myself actually here as well. Now, basically for pretty much all my life, as many of you may know, I have been a democratic socialist and a progressive and a liberal as well. Some of you also may know I have been a volunteer campaigner for the New Democratic Party, Canada's very own NDP, having worked with the as well Honorable Mr. Bob Deeth recently, and I had a lot of fun doing that, folks. It was a real ride, and if he ever decides to run for politics again, I would like to help him out. I've also helped out Jody Wickens on her campaign. It was out in the Coquitlam area, Tri-Cities area, yes. And as I said, I'm a long-standing, very proud liberal, very proud socialist and progressive, who believes in a few things. And I'll list some of where I come from, basically, and tell you a little about myself. I believe in a peaceful foreign policy. A peaceful war is the last resort, for defense only, mind you, never the first or only resort. That sort of foreign policy that focuses on diplomacy, that focuses on negotiation, peaceful solutions, peaceful means, peaceful resolutions, peace agreements, arrangements, and settlements, if you will. It also focuses on peacekeeping and not aggressive warfare. And as well, humanitarian aids simply to win hearts and minds. And as well, of course, obviously for showing people in the world that are suffering from terrorism, that are suffering from disasters, that are suffering from war and conquest, showing them kindness, love, compassion, and caring. So a peaceful foreign policy where we basically do all we can, as best we can, as far as possible, as groups, societies, individuals, and nations, countries, states, and kingdoms live in peace. I also believe, Arak, StarrEagle believes, folks, in a cleaner environment, respect for human life, as well as plants and animals, our flora and fauna. Taking care of God's green earth, if you will, and being a good steward, basically. They are valuable life forms in addition to us, and we don't matter an exception to them, but of course we matter as well, and we want to have a very clean world, as clean and as pristine and as healthy as can be. And I believe in combating man-made climate change. As far as economics goes, I am a Keynesian, if you will. For those of you that know about John Maynard Keynes, it was sort of a philosophy that dates back to the 1930s, I believe. And that was what inspired things such as the New Deal. Basically, a Keynesian-style regulated economy with a bigger, larger, stronger, and energetic, vital, helpful, responsible federal government, active in promoting the common good and aiding, loving, caring for, helping, providing, and benefiting its citizens with much-needed social programs. Yes, they benefit everyone. Things like universal health care and free education, investing in their lives, their stories, and needs, essentials, human essentials, and human experiences. Again, much like Lyndon Baines Johnson's Great Society, FDR's New Deal, which really helped pull us out of the Great Depression, and Kennedy's New Frontier that even looked to the very stars themselves, looked to the future. I believe in investment in infrastructure, essential services, strong social safety net that stops our poor, our homeless, our needy, and our have-nots, those who are hopeless and helpless and have nothing, dire straits, from slipping beneath the cracks. I believe in wealth redistribution to address wealth and economic inequalities and close the gap between the rich and the poor. I believe in the protection of our civil rights, civil liberties, our freedom, right to privacy, and freedom of speech, peaceful protest, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression, with, of course, due respect, decorum, and responsibility. The reason I'm endorsing Mr. Bernie Sanders tonight, folks, is I believe Mr. Sanders has a very kind, loving, caring, and compassionate heart. I've seen it in him, I've watched the debates, and I get those vibes from him that he really, really does care about people. He cares a lot about people that are sick. He cares a lot about people that are poor. He cares about the homeless. He cares about the middle class. And I will be going into that as I parse a few of his speeches here as well. I believe that his policies are very hopeful and helpful, positive, optimistic, beneficial, and altruistic. Policies and politics, ideals and ideologies. A man of intelligence. He's a man of integrity and a man of honor and character. And a just, fair vision for what America can be, So I'm basically endorsing him for the President of the United States. The first thing I'm going to go into tonight, folks, as I parse this book, this is when he announced he made his announcement that he was going to be running a little while ago, and he was talking about having a political revolution that really benefits those that really need help in society. And one of the things that he addressed was wealth and income inequality. If I may paraphrase Bernie Sanders, actually it's a direct quote, but he says, "Today, folks, we live in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, but that reality means very little for most of us because almost all that wealth is owned and controlled by a tiny handful of individuals." And as he said many times, it seems that the rich are getting richer, folks, and the poor are just getting poorer. Well, the upper class, the elite, the corporations, the aristocracy, people that hide their tax money in the Cayman Islands or places in Bermuda with offshore tax havens and sanctuaries and tax shelters, and of course they have tax loopholes as well. And they're avoiding paying their fair share of taxes, as he's gone into. And while all of that's going on, and a long time ago, Ronald Reagan gave us this, even George Bush said it was voodoo economics. There's a trickle-down theory that if you have super tax cuts and large, giant super tax cuts, and George Bush did that too, for the upper elite, it's going to trickle down. We haven't seen that. What we've actually seen a lot of times, folks, is we've seen a sliding scale, where the rich are rising to the top. And they're basically, and I'm not saying we should soak or crush the rich, that's not the intention. I'm just saying, the same as Bernie, that they should pay their fair share of taxes. I want to make that very clear. But basically the paradigm is this, is that the wealthier have so much, and the few have so much, and the many have so little, as Bernie has said on so many of his speeches. And it's true. Basically you have a situation where the few do have so much, and that wealth does sit at the top. It's basically residing at the top, and it's not trickling down, and the many do have so little and do have so few. Like him, I don't really think that's a good situation. As I was talking about that sliding scale, folks, basically, like I said, the powerful are becoming more powerful. The elites, the mega powerful, are becoming more powerful. And those that have nothing or have little are sliding into the drain. Basically, what's happening is you're having the middle class becoming poor. And the poor are becoming homeless, and the homeless, frankly, let's be honest, folks, the homeless are dying in the streets. So, when Bernie Sanders talks about wealth redistribution to help out the poor and the have-nots, those in dire straits, if you will, on hard times, those are down on their luck, down on their very knees, wondering about tomorrow, will I make it another day? Can I feed my family? I got to think Bernie Sanders has a good point. He also says in America, we now have more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. And the gap between the very rich and everyone is wider than at any time since the 1920s. That was the time of the Great Depression, folks. What FDR did was he instituted a New Deal. And, so there might be some that say that those were drastic measures, but FDR did what it took to rescue people from the clutches of extreme squalid poverty and very harsh conditions of economic suffering and misfortune. And, so then he talks about the issue of wealth and income inequality is the great moral issue of our time. This is something that, even some of the Republicans are talking about. You even have people like Ted Cruz, who speaks out against corporate welfare, and Donald Trump has been talking about bad trade deals, as of course Mr. Sanders has as well. It's too bad that he
peppers a lot of the rest of his politics, frankly, I'm just going to say this, with a lot of racism. So anyways, that's what I'm going to say about Mr. Trump, and no more, no more. Bernie Sanders says, let me be very clear, there is something profoundly wrong when the top tenth of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Kind of makes you think. And when 99% of all new income goes to the top 1%. So as we can see from what the model that Bernie Sanders is talking about, that wealth is residing and sitting at the top. And it is not flowing down. It is not trickling down to the lesser fortunates, if you will. People that are poverty-stricken, that are impoverished, as I said, on dire straits. He goes on to say there's something profoundly wrong when in recent years we have a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires at the same time as millions of Americans work longer hours for lower wages. And we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. That's very interesting. When you hear about something like that, and there's children out there that are going without proper nutrition, without adequate food in their bellies. This is something that we need to address. And I agree with him. And he talks about the grotesque level of inequality as immoral. Bernie, I agree with you. It isn't good at economics, as you've said, and it isn't sustainable. And he finalizes that topic off by saying, this type of rigged economy is not what America is supposed to be about. This has to change, and as our president, together, he will work to change that. I paraphrase that one. Good for you, Bernie. Good for you. We have to do something to help out the least of us in society. And I just got to be honest, that speaks to my heart. And then Bernie goes on to say about economics, it is not just income and wealth inequality. It's a tragic reality for the last 40 years that the great middle class of our country, once the envy of the world, has been disappearing. Despite exploding technology and increased worker productivity, median family income is almost $5,000 less than it was in 1989. In Vermont, throughout this country, it's not uncommon for people to be working 2 or 3 jobs just to cobble together enough income to survive and for some health care benefits. It's not very just. That's not very fair. The fact of the matter is this, folks. Like I said, when there are those out there that are doing so well, and then some families are just really struggling to put food on their table, to feed their children. And, they also have health care needs that they can't meet. You think about old ladies even sometimes, and I think about this situation. Pensioners and, if they have a heart problem or something like that, or some kind of illness, and they need pills for that, but they're, on a very low income, if they're on a very low income, and, or anybody in this position, doesn't have to be an older person either, but anyone that's unwell or unhealthy. And when they have to choose between, rent and food sometimes, that's another one too, by the way, but when they have to choose between their rent and food and the medication, and one of those has to go, that's not a very good situation. Let's put it this way. On one level, you're going to have a house, and another level, you won't have food. And another level, you could have food, but you're on the streets. Or you can't afford your medication. So people are forced to make hard choices. And sometimes one of those 3 things, or 2 of those 3 things, gets axed. Bernie, like I said, I'm still with you, bro. And he says that the truth is real unemployment is not the 5.4% you read about in newspapers. It's close to 11% if you include those workers who've given up looking for jobs or are working part-time when they want to work full-time. And youth unemployment is over 17%, and African American youth unemployment is much higher than that. Well, it sounds to me like there's even a bit of institutional racism. And today, shamefully, we have 45 million people living in poverty, many of whom are working at low-wage jobs. These are the people who struggle every day to find the money to feed their kids, as I was saying, and to pay their electric bills and put gas in their car to get to work. Sum it up, Bernie says his campaign is about those people and our struggling middle class. It's about creating an economy that works for all people and not just the 1%. I can't say it any better, and I fully endorse Bernie on the economic sphere there. Talks a little about Citizens United there. That's something I don't actually totally understand, but I will go into it anyway. Basically, it's not one of my fortes, but he says, let me be as blunt as I can and tell you what you already know. As a result of the disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United, the American political system has been totally corrupted and the foundation of American democracy has been undermined. Now, what the Supreme Court essentially said, it was not good enough for the billionaire class to own much of our economy. They could now own the United States government as well. And that's precisely what they're trying to do. That actually makes me think of the TPP deals and much of these trade deals where corporations are going to have their say more and more in governmental decisions. So, I mean, are we going to be electing leaders? Are we going to be electing, corporate puppet figureheads, marionettes for the large multinational corporations? Maybe kind of think about that. But really, what he's talking about here, American democracy is not about billionaires being able to buy candidates in elections. It's not about the Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, and other incredibly wealthy individuals, the Waltons might come to mind too, spending billions of dollars to elect candidates who will make the rich richer and everyone else poorer. It's a rigged system, folks. And this is the kind of thing that's been going on for a long time. Personally, I would love it. I'm the son of a mill worker. My dad, he worked for years in a mill, and in point of fact, he actually got laid off. And he had to go on UI, and he had to go on welfare, and actually at one point workers' comp, he got cut with a saw. So I'm glad that we have a system in Canada where we really take care of people. I think they do what they can in America, but the fact of the matter is what I'm thinking. It would be great if anybody really could run for office. I just had that thought myself. And I agree with him. I don't like it when basically you have large corporations, whether it's big pharmaceutical, whether it's big energy, big tobacco. I smoke, I'm an idiot. But anyway, that being said, I really am. However, I agree with him. I don't like the idea of the lobbyists and basically the corporations, the special interests, who get a government kickback, trust me folks, being able to rig elections for a candidate that will speak for them, that will speak for the oil corporations and their agenda, which actually hurts the environment so often, or, for big pharmaceutical, like I said, big energy, big tobacco, big coal. Coal's another one, and there really is a problem with that. And it says, according here to media reports, the Koch brothers alone, one family, will spend more money in this election cycle than either the Democratic or Republican parties. That's interesting. At some point, are we electing the corporations, or are we electing candidates? Something has to be done about this. He says, this is not democracy, this is oligarchy. Good for you, Bernie. Show a little bit of fire, my brother. In Vermont and at our town meetings, we know that American democracy is supposed to be about. It's about one person, one vote, with every citizen having an equal say. And no voter suppression. And that's the kind of American political system we have to fight for, and we'll fight for in this campaign, he goes on to say, from my quotes here. Well, it's about time, folks, that you had a candidate that spoke from the heart, that spoke honestly. And, he's going to try his best to represent people. He's not going to be representing the lobbyists. He's not going to be representing the special interests. He has a very grassroots campaign and a lot of grassroots support. And I think it's time we really had somebody in office that is going to be speaking for the common man, for the middle class, for the poor, not just, for the oligarchies. Not just for the robber barons, if you will. And I hardly agree with them on that, Climate change, yes, this is a good one. Well, personally, folks, I believe myself, I'm speaking myself, this is not Bernie saying this, but I will say it. I believe that our reliance on fossil fuel and coal, oil and gas, we have a borderline addiction to this consumption, yes. And it's lining the pockets of the oil corporations and the big energy corporations and the coal corporations. If you look at miners' lungs, the people that have worked in mines, they wound up with black lungs, they wound up with lung cancer through no fault of their own. And this is the kind of stuff that we're spewing into the atmosphere. Carbon emissions, CO2 emissions, greenhouse gases, these coal-fired plants, oil and gas refineries. We take a look at pollution, we take a look at toxic waste spills, and we take a look at all these oil spills that happen, and frankly, even nuclear. I don't know actually exactly where Bernie stands on that one. I certainly think there should be safeguards if we're going to have it, if you look at Fukushima and Daiichi. So really, what we want to do is we want to drive down that climate change. And what Bernie says here, folks, is, I'll go into what he says as well. It's very interesting. He says, when we talk about our responsibilities as human beings, as parents, there's nothing more important than leaving this country and the entire planet in a way that is habitable for our kids and our grandchildren. The debate is over. The scientific community has spoken in a virtually unanimous voice. Climate change is real. It's caused by human activity and it's already causing devastating problems in the United States and around the world. Now, this is happening, folks. Now, I will say this, just if people are going to argue with me on this one, they're going to say, well, Kyle, well, Arak, a lot of climate change is natural. Yes, it is. Pure and simple, I agree with you. But does that mean that all of it is? No. And does that mean that a lot of it, or many of it, is not caused by human overconsumption of certain things? As I said, the fossil fuels and coal and whatnot? That does not connotate that. And there have been scientific studies dating back years and decades and years and decades about rising temperatures, rising tides too, polar ice caps melting, there's been flooding, and you see animals that normally live in the far north being driven down farther south to get their sustenance. So you see evidence even on that level, folks. You know, and this is the kind of poison that we're putting in our atmosphere. This is the kind of poison that in China, ladies and gentlemen, that in China they have to walk around in gas masks and they have orange smoke. They have what is called smog days. Smog days. Can you imagine? When I was a kid, and I was a little kid in the 1980s, I mean, I heard something about climate change. Now it's the point where we have smog days in China, one of the world's biggest polluters. You know, this gives you a little bit of pause, doesn't it, folks? Gives you a little bit of pause, my raptors. And, you know, I believe in being a good steward of God's green earth, if you will. And I believe that we are supposed to tend that garden. And we can't make everything perfect, but man, you know, we got an uphill climb. We got an uphill climb. But at the same time, you know, I think that if enough of us get together, you know, as Bernie is saying here, enough of us get together and, you know, we combat that climate change and, you know, we drive that down. We drive that down. That's, and stop poisoning our waters, you know, and our atmosphere. So really, you know, and Bernie goes on to tell us, the scientists are telling us that if we do not boldly transform our energy system away from fossil fuels and into energy efficiency and sustainable energies, this planet could be 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer by the end of the century. It is. He says it's catastrophic. It will mean more droughts. Actually, I was going to say this myself, but he said it way better than I could. It will mean more drought, more famine, more rising sea level, more floods, more ocean acidification, my lord, that's a hard word to say, and more extreme weather disturbances, more disease, and more human suffering. Folks, we've got to do better than this. I believe we can. Like I said, we didn't cause all the climate change. The Earth goes through heating and cooling cycles. So to diffuse the arguments of any that are going to challenge me on that, yes, again, some of it's natural. But the point is, you know, if you take a look at society over a long period of time, you had things like dating back to the Industrial Revolution, and you look what happened with Britain back there. And you look at what's happening again, as I said, with China. India has its fair share of pollution as well, and certainly the United States and Canada do too. I live in Maple Ridge, and on a summer's night rather, you know, at one time, I'll tell you a little story, I was standing, my good friend behind the camera, Dan, it was kind of late at night, we came back from the park, and we're over on Albion Hill, and we're looking at the city, the skyline. You can see nothing but smog. I could see nothing but smog again, you know. And again, this is the kind of stuff that we're putting in our atmosphere. And with the heating of the earth and everything, as he says, there's more droughts. You know, and where there's more drought, there's, you know, certainly less water for people to drink. And that's a big problem. I mean, we need hydration just to survive. There's more famine. You know, there's less crops to grow and things like that, rising sea level. Folks, do we want disasters or do we want survival? I think we got a clear choice. And as I said, no, we're not causing all of it, but we're causing a lot of it. Let's take responsibility for that part of it and that many part of it that we are causing. Global warming is no myth. Global warming is a reality. And we are part of that. And we can help to break that cycle as best we can. Bernie says we must not, we cannot, and we will not allow that to happen. And he says as well, it's no secret there's massive, just a second here. I think I got the wrong one there. Hold on. It does happen. Oh. 1 second there. Apple. It's no secret there's massive discontent with the politics in America. In the midterm election in November, 63% of Americans didn't vote, including 80% of young people. And poll after poll tells us that our citizens no longer have confidence in our political institution. Yeah, that is trouble. And given the power of big money in the political process, they have seriously doubts about how much their vote actually does matter and whether politicians have any clue to what is going on in their lives. There is a disconnect. There is definitely a disconnect. There's a disconnect between Washington and Main Street. There's a disconnect between K Street and Main Street. So Bernie's talking all about political alienation. And there is a legitimate anger that's being created and a cynicism. Now, that makes me think too. I mean, you've got candidates that are channeling that anger, by the way, and I will say this, and they funnel that towards demagoguery, or bigotry, xenophobia, and prejudice.